Hello, I am Sébastien Plaisant, and I'm here with Andrea Tipa.
Hello, everyone.
We are both principal quality assurance engineer at Amadeus, and here we are here to present you how Robot Framework has transformed our test ecosystem by simplifying it, and how, thanks to our Utopia project, we have built a full test shared framework on top of robots. Let me first introduce you Amadeus, which is a world leader in the travel industry for software solutions. We have centers all around the world, and with more than 20,000 employees. Our main activity is to connect people that sell tickets or content and people that provide content, like hotels, airlines, rail operators, and so on. We also have facilities for air operations and ground operation for any airports. Regarding the numbers, more than 400 million booking has passed through our systems. 1.5 billion passengers has used and board thanks to Amadeus system without knowing it. And regarding the number of transactions our system has to deal with, we have an average of 70,000 transactions per second, and we can reach up to 1 million transactions per second. Let's take a concrete example with end-to-end air travel. Maybe you went to RoboCon in Helsinki on February. Myself, I booked a plane from my hometown, Nice, to Helsinki. So I took my mobile phone, search for the best flight, get the list of prices, select one flight, did the booking, paid online. Then I received the ticket on my mailbox. Finally, one day before the flight, I did the online check-in. And at the end of course, the day of the flight, I board the plane and traveled to Helsinki. In all of these steps, an Amadeus system is involved, like journey and availability, reservation, ticketing, departure and control. Of course, you can imagine that the level of quality required by Amadeus is very high. We cannot afford a failure. For example, if the departure control system fails, you can imagine the queue at the airport with all the passengers waiting to board their plane. We have a technical legacy. We have started 30 years ago with airline-specific technologies, relying on protocols like EDIFACT and Cryptic, which are standard protocols from the travel industry. If I go back to the example I previously explained, some time ago, I had to go to a travel agency to search for a flight and to book for a flight. At that time, the travel agency had to type a request on the terminal, and this was a cryptic message. This cryptic message is transformed to a network message, which is an EDIFACT message that is sent to the network until to reach our servers. And our servers then compute the request and answer back with a list of available flights. In order to validate all of this, we have built an internal test system based on a C++ core engine. And the technology involved were very linked to this protocol, like EDIFACT and Cryptic. And we have developed thousands of tests running on this platform and on this framework. And still today, thousands of tests are run every day in order to ensure the quality of our systems. In the meantime, technology evolves and content evolves also. First of all, we have to deal not only with airlines, but also with trains, hotels, car rentals, and so on. All of this content is new. On the other side, technology evolves. Now, most of us, when we had to find a flight and book for a flight, for example, we go to a website directly on a website. We use web UIs. And underneath technologies now are well known, like SOAP-XML, REST API, and now for cloud-native application, Kafka. In order to validate all of this, we have used from the market tools like Postman, SOAP UI, Protractors, Playwright, and so on. This leads to the increase of the complexity of our test ecosystem. And finally, by building a full end-to-end test solution became more and more complex because we have to synchronize all of these tools together. In the same time, in around 2015, we discovered Robot Framework and its great capability to write inside a single test, thanks to its well-known library mechanism, a test that address all this technology at the same time. And it was a great discover. Now, in parallel, internally, we have developed a new project called Utopy. Utopy stands for Unified Test Automation in Python. The idea, and it started in 2021, was to build shared library written in Python, independent from the test system, that will allow us to address these legacy technologies and this protocol we use, Edifact Cryptic, and to share this library between all the teams in Amadeus in order to avoid code duplication and test duplication all over. In 2022, we imagined that why not using this library with Robot Framework, adapting a little bit this library to have Robot Framework keywords, and then use Robot as a test framework using this library to write our test. But you all know that writing tests in Robot Framework, you have lots of flexibility and you can write in many different ways all the tests you want. So we start thinking, as we have many different teams in Amadeus, to provide a common framework, guidelines, and rules to build this test and these libraries. And that's what we done last year in 2023. And finally, at the end of the year, end of 2023, we have introduced all the new technologies, not only Edifact Cryptic, but REST, SOAP, Kafka for cloud-native application, and so on, so that to complete the portfolio of this offer. Now, let me briefly talk you what were the challenges we have to face for this project using Robot and the Utopy project. The first one was standardization. As I explained, with Robot Framework, you can write tests in many different ways, and we have to give a common direction to all our teams. And this is quite challenging because we have to find the right balance between giving strict rules and leaving flexibility to the team to allow them to have creativity. The other thing was important for us is the functional approach. We use the functional approach to define our keywords. We wanted to have keywords-driven, functional keywords-driven libraries, meaning that we didn't want to have to be linked to the technology underneath, but really the functions, the business keywords. And so being able to have human understandable tests for everyone in the company. Another key pillar was sharing. As I explained, we didn't want to have teams redeveloping everything. So this library for Robot Framework need to be shared and to all the teams. And in order to ensure that all the teams know these libraries and what they are doing and so on, we have built communities and we open the development to this library to all the community inside Amadeus. And at the end, we are on the process to open source this project in the near future.
Now, the framework Anization. We have one unique Bitbucket project for all the testing libraries. All the testing libraries are deployed in a unique Artifactory. We have standard template for the testing libraries, standard keywords for message injection, a central configuration catalog. The core of the testing library is written in pure Python. And finally, we are taking the strengths from Python in terms of flexibility and Robot Framework in terms of human-readable syntax. First, we standardize the local setup. We are VS Code compliant because it's the recommended IDE in Amadeus. We have standard templates for the local setup with some standard settings. Here, you have an example of the template that we propose. that is based on some recommended extensions. We have a standard Python extension like black formatter and plint that are used in our CI pipelines. We have a robot framework extension. We have an extension to preview the HTML file directly in VS Code, and an extension to handle the workspaces. Then we are also using some standard paths that are based on the Python virtual environment and on a common test suite skeleton. Such paths are compliant with all the operating systems, so Windows, Linux, and macOS. We are also using one VS Code variable called the workspace folder that represents the value of a folder mapped in VS Code. This variable is automatically evaluated by VS Code at runtime. And finally, we have a standard configuration for the local execution when the user clicks on the run button. In this way, we can set up some environment variable, define the log level, define the output of the report folder, and we can also provide a UI feedback to the user, because as you can notice, we are using the attribute inputs of the configuration, and in this way we can provide a drop-down menu to select, for example, the targeted environment. Now let's jump at the heart of the framework. We developed a central library called Protocol. This library contains standard keywords to send messages via the various protocols that are using in Amadeus, like Cryptic, Edifact, HTTP REST, and SOAP. For the REST and SOAP, we added also the logic to automatically generate the authentication token based on the different authentication mechanisms. You see the structure of the library on the left, and you see also an example of the documentation of the library based on the standard template that we'll see later in the presentation. The central protocol configuration is handled using another library called the target library that is part of UTOPI. The goal is to have a central configuration library containing standard configuration to send messages via the different protocols that are used in Amadeus. Configurations are defined in the YAM file that you see on the left. Here you see an example of the configuration for the cloud native application, where you can recognize details like the path and the tenant. And one of the goals is also to mask the complexity of the configuration behind the common and standard profiles. Here, an example of a profile for one of our on-premises application, and for the cloud native application, where you can recognize the list of microservices that are exposed by such cloud native application. But how is it used in Robot Framework? If we take this example, we are sending a request to a shopper microservice on a production path. In the setup step, we are passing two parameters like the profile name and the path. And thanks to such parameters, the library is able to parse the YAM file that you see on the left and to build the target URL that you see in the example. We talked about the functional approach using a common library template. A reminder, a testing library is a Python package representing a collection of Robot Framework functional keywords. This is the standard template that we propose, where the product name is the library name, and then we have different folders for all the basic functionalities that are part of this product. Inside every folder, we have different Python files. We have one called the injector.py, a file that represents the functional keywords used in the Robot Framework script. And then, as the same functionality can be implemented using different protocols, we have different files for the different implementation. This one is the template for the Cryptic protocol, the template for the Edifact protocol, for the REST, and for the SOAP. Then we have also one file called responses.py that contains the functional keywords that are used to check the expected response. In this way, we have separated the Robot Framework keyword, the implementation of the keyword, and the keywords that are used to check the expected response. Finally, we don't forget that we're using Robot Framework, and we have one file called the keywords.robot that the users can use to aggregate the basic functionality to create more complex functional keywords. In terms of scalability, we have a model that is pick and choose. If you see such example, in fact, in the example called the PNR library, you can see that there is one functionality called the add contact elements that has been implemented using two protocols, cryptic and the defact. In the other example, in the library payout, we have a functionality called the create a car that has been implemented in cryptic, REST, and SOAP. So you can see that the architecture behind is modular and flexible, and the user can really choose what he needs. Then we are also protocol agnostic, as the message is routed to the right injector from the broker. If you remember, we said that the injector.py contains the functional keyword used in the robot framework script. So let's focus on it to explain the functional approach. Let's see the protocol agnostic approach in details. Let's focus on a functionality called the create a car. We said that in the injector.py, we have the functional keywords, in this case, create a car, that is used in the robot framework script. And now, thanks to a variable that we are passing in the setup step, we are able to route the right message to the right injector. In this first example, we set the value of a variable protocol equal to cryptic, and we are using the injector cryptic. In the second example, the value of a variable is REST, and we are using the injector REST. You can recognize that we are sending a post request. And in the third example, we are using the SOAP injector. It's a SOAP message wrapped in a REST request. You can recognize that the body of the message is an XML, and you can recognize some details like the SOAP actions and so on. We implemented also a standard U2Py workflow that is adopted by all the Python testing library to automate the building of a package, the deployment of a package in the Artifactory, the generation of the library documentation, the upload of the library documentation, the validation of the changes against the unit tests that are included in the testing library. Here you see the different steps of the pipeline. We are using black to format the code and PyLint to have a clean code with an high threshold of 9%. In terms of documentation, we have a standard format for the testing library documentation generated via libdoc. We have a standard format for keywords documentation. The documentation is available directly in VS Code, and all the U2Py libraries documentation are hosted in one single place. To recap, we are combining the strength of Python in terms of flexibility and robot framework in terms of human-readable syntax. We are promoting the creation of testing libraries with standardized functional keywords, the sharing to avoid duplication, and the community approach with inner source contribution. Thanks, and don't hesitate to contact me and Sebastian.
Thank you very much for this invitation to the RoboCon Online.
All right, awesome session. All right, guys, I see you in the green room. We're about to go live. Get your questions in now by going to Slido, either to the right of this video, or if for some reason you're not watching this video somewhere that has the Slido embedded to the right of it, all you need to do is go to slido.com and just type in RoboCon, and it should get you in as well. All right, here's live Q&A. Let's do it. Hey guys, welcome to RoboCon.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Welcome.
Awesome. Good to have you. All right, I thought we'd jump right into the questions. We got a bunch of them coming our way, so let's do it. First one is, have you encountered, it kept moving on me, so it is, have you encountered some pushback from devs or other members of teams when switching from Cypress Playwright to Robot Framework?
I can take the question.
Right.
Yeah, it's slightly, indeed, as usual, when you promote new technologies, new tools, some of them, some people from the company would say, I got this tool, which is much better. We use Cypress and we do lots of things, great things with Cypress, and we don't like Playwright or the other way and so on. What we try to enforce is that using, for example, Robot with browser library Playwright, and it's our choice. It's first of all, it's a technological choice, and Robot is the key tool for us because, as we try to explain during the introduction of the video, we address many different technologies, and we have to build sometimes end-to-end tests which are quite complex, meaning that we first have to open the UI, click on the button to do some stuff, and then check on backends using REST API or artifact protocols to see that everything went well and so on. And this was quite challenging using tools like other tools. And the power, really, what we love with Robot is that we can do everything within this tool in a single test, within a single environment that is well integrated in all our testing system in the company.
So did you have to do any rewrites? Did you have an existing test suite that are like, okay, we're going to rewrite everything with Cypress or Playwright, or did you just start brand new? From this point going forward, we'll be using Robot Framework?
Yes, actually, I personally we were more working with Protector Selenium on sometimes some of our team use Cypress, but most of regarding specific UI testing, we used to have Protector Selenium, and when we start playing with Robot and the browser library, what I did is just take one piece of code, one piece of test that we had, rewrite it completely with Robot and the browser, and so and demo. I tried to push and explain how simple it was now with the robots and the browser library to read the test, run it, and how it was much quicker also, execution time and so on. So just to push the advantage. And yes, we write, and sometimes it was a good thing because rewriting sometimes it can be painful, but also allows you to do some cleanup because when you have lots of regression tests running, sometimes you realize that some of them you have to delete them, are no more useful and so on. So yes.
Awesome. Okay. Why not use request library from Robot Framework instead of coding a new one?
I can take this one, and it's also linked a little bit to the second question that we see in the list.
Yep.
What we love of the approach that we did, in fact, is that it's not specific to a specific domain. It's not linked to a specific domain, okay? The approach that we are promoting is really generic, okay? We can use it to test all the APIs that you need, and not only related to the travel industry and so on. Why not using the request library? Mainly because, first of all, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, of course. We are using the standard request Python standard request module from Python, of course. But if I talk specifically to the REST part, we added all the logic behind to automatically generate, for example, the authentication token. So we have different types of authentication token that we are handling in the company. And the part that we add is that the generation of the token. So the user just to specify which token is needed, okay? And it's the library that is able to handle everything. So the token generation, the update of the header, and so on. And in most of the cases, we realize that this is the complicated part, let's say, when you're testing an API. So be able to generate the token in the right way. And using this approach, in fact, we have simplified a lot the testing for our users. And again, it's not related to the travel industry, but you can test with everyone. In fact, we plan also to open source our library. Okay, we have something to adapt, of course, but as the approach is generic, again, the goal is to open it to everyone.
Love it. Okay, cool. So that answers both questions. I'm not sure if this is still true. I used to be a travel agent in like early 90s, and there was a lot of legacy systems back then, which were very difficult to automate, I would imagine. Is it still the same in the travel industry? Like when you do an end-to-end test, could it be possible you would have to interact with the mainframe as well? Or a green screen?
Interact with mainframe?
Yeah.
We used to.
Right.
It's a long story in our company. We used to have using mainframes a lot, and when we move out of this, it took years and years to move out of mainframe and move to standard Linux boxes, and now we fully rely on let's say Linux box and servers in our data centers, and so we do not have any technologies related to mainframe. Our tests now are no more based on these mainframe technologies. We only rely on Linux boxes. And now we are same move. We are moving to the cloud. So it's now a big move, challenging move in our company. So we now need to address and to adapt all our test ecosystem to target cloud native applications and cloud applications.
So I guess that would be another benefit of using Robot Framework, because they have libraries for so many things that you don't have to reinvent the wheel if it's a different technology you need to do it.
Exactly. Indeed.
Cool. So you mentioned in your talk that you plan on open sourcing some of your library packages. How do you plan to do this, and under which software licenses?
Yeah, it will be our next big challenge, let's say, in the sense that we have two things that for sure, with two parts of what we presented that we can open source. One is the template of the library we propose, because it's really generic and is not related to our company, our domain, and so on. So this is the easiest path, let's say, to open to everyone. Regarding the protocol library, yes, we have to rework a little bit, because there is not really specific to our domain, but for sure we have to do a little bit of cleanup to ensure that we are not publishing, let's say, some confidential information and so on. But we don't have a real, and now we don't have a specific step, let's say. We have something that we have to explore. We explore in the next weeks and months, but we can do it.
Indeed, we are trying to do it as quick as possible. We are just need time to do it. Yeah. The question of the which license, this is a very good question, and we honestly have not sorted this out. We'll see, but it's a strong will from our team to do it. So stay tuned.
Awesome, absolutely. So how do you do all this? Do you have a dedicated team to provide and maintain the keyword libraries in the framework, or is it just everyone for themselves?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. What we put in place around behind this framework is a governance, of course. Today, we are a big team. Of course, we are part of the transversal quality team in Amadeus, so we are serving the full engineering community in Amadeus, and we are the owner of this project, and we are the ones that are doing the governance around this project. So we are onboarding the new users. We ensure that everyone is moving in the right direction, and especially that when the libraries are developed, so the libraries are specific to a product, we ensure that the new implementation are done on this specific library, and there are no duplication behind it, because one of our pillars is to avoid duplication and to share at maximum what has been done. So yes, there is a clear governance that we put in place, and is also supported by some automated workflow, as we explained also in the presentation, that will help us to enforce this governance.
Yeah, and the final goal is that every team which develop new libraries based on these frameworks become, let's say, independent, is maintaining its own library. And of course, it's still open to everyone in the company. If someone wants to do some customization or enrich the library, it's an open source like model. But yes, the team that has developed the new libraries, then when they are independent, they manage and follow their libraries themselves.
Probably time for one last question. You mentioned we're using other frameworks, and then you went to Robot Framework. So I'm piggybacking on this. Can you share some figures on how the adoption of the project in the company? So did you see less flaky tests? Is it all the teams adapted it and saw quicker release cycles? Any type of figures?
Yes, indeed. The story is that we had this homemade test framework. Very well. I'm not blaming it at all, but it's lots of people, lots of teams were use it and develop new scripts. Some of the teams were just copy pasting all tests and adapting them and so on. So the test base become huge, very difficult to maintain sometimes. And people leave the company, new people on board and so on. So it's sometimes it became quite challenging to ensure the stability of the tests and so on. So that was one of the goals of moving to robot, and now using robot as main test framework. The idea was here, yes, we have a tool that now everybody knows, not only in our company but outside. If we onboard newcomers, they know already robot and they can directly work on it. And regarding the figures, recently we have. I can't say numbers of employees or number of development, but we are around 30 teams in Amadeus, which is quite a lot, but now moved to robot framework and either develop new tests and new libraries, either move out of our legacy test framework to robots to implement this test. And the feedbacks are very good.
As Sebastian just mentioned, we are moving to the cloud, and the robot framework is the only solution today used for the application that are moving to the new cloud application. So it's fully deployed for that.
Awesome. Oh, really great session, guys. Appreciate you contributing and sharing this knowledge. I think it's awesome. And hopefully we'll see you again at RoboCon. Thanks so much for all you do.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Awesome stuff.